button.
You hit the button. So I can't say what I just said a little bit ago.
Please do.
Are we live?
Yeah, we should be, yeah.
Please say what you said again.
No, I wouldn't do that to you, Adam. The whole worldwide public would be a little disturbed. This is Through a Therapist's Eyes on, what is this? Actually, August. We are hitting August. That's pretty cool. So if you're hitting us for the first time on Through a Therapist's Eyes on Thursdays, we come on live before we do the live mics for the Spotify and the Apple Podcasts and various places you get your podcasts. So we got Adam Cloninger hanging out with us. How are you, sir?
Wonderful. Hope you are.
All right. Yeah. You getting ready to have a fun night?
Yeah. Supposedly, we'll see.
You got some friends in high places.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's not definite until it actually happens.
He's going to have a brush with fame. I guess we'll leave it a mystery. And we have Neil coming out of the curtains. How are you, sir?
Fantastic.
Yeah. That didn't sound convincing.
It didn't sound convincing.
My last 2 weeks have been hell, but that's okay. There's been some shifts in my industry that's been very hard on the consultant. So it's
I
been
love Microsoft.
It's
basically.
it's been fun. So we'll just leave it at that, and I'm just glad I'm still awake and not stressed, and I still have hair, so that's good.
That's good. Lots of hair on the
Sounds like a
beard
bunch of OneDrive and 365
No,
stuff.
I do email stuff, so it's a whole nother thing, and it's not
crashed.
it's not CrowdStrike related, so it's just a whole nother thing.
Everything crashed. So we are doing the July month in review, and we've got a lot to cover, so hang tight. We're going to move fast. We have 4 shows that we can get to them. What were they? Therapy Modalities Explained. What is sensory defensiveness? How does mental health and therapy affect emotional intelligence? And if we have time to get to it, number 4 was what are true needs versus wants? So we're going all the way back to episode 278 because we are on episode 282 now. That doesn't sound right. We have 4 shows. Did I get the episode wrong again? Is this really?
No, that's right, because
Is that right?
you have to count the numbers.
282.
So 78, 79, 80, 81. It's 4. Yeah, it's just weird when you do it, when you have to do the counting.
It's tough to do the math.
Counting's hard.
And you'll hear it on the regular show, but on the YouTube Live, I will give a quick shout-out welcome to Trevor Brown, and I don't know how to pronounce that one, Neil. Toshiak? Toshiak? Toshiaq is...
Sounds good. I don't know.
Listener. Sorry if I'm butchering that, bud. So, pretty cool, though, in that regard.
Well, they commented or something, or what was that all about?
Just, huh?
The shout-outs.
Subscribers.
New subscribers
okay.
to
Gotcha.
the YouTube channel.
Gotcha.
So just I gave Chris this tidbit. If you're a channel with less than 1,000 subscribers and someone subscribes and their profile is public, you actually get notified that this person subscribed. So we're shouting out to the new subscribers that are coming in that we can see. You know, the numbers are growing. You know, hopefully we can continue it, pushing out them shorts. So yeah, if you first time listening to this show, go ahead and subscribe and hit your notifications, because every week
is your job.
Every week we're here. So if you want to chime in and give us your feedback and comments, we'll it'd be fun to see some interesting comments come through. So let's see if we can rattle Chris. So
that would be
live
fun.
Shows. Throw your comments and let's see if we can rattle Chris.
That would be fun.
It'd be cool if the new subscribers were to comment in right now.
I mean, right? Absolutely. Yep. They are here. You are here.
And
we are here.
They can tell us how to actually pronounce their name.
But we do have an email that we're going to go over too, so that was cool. We got a lot to do. We ready to rock and roll, Neil?
Yep.
Let's do it.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes, actually coming to you August the 1st with the July month in review. Got a lot to do tonight. If we have time, we'll get to 4 shows, but we may not be able to cover them all. We'll just play it over to the next month. But if you're finding us on this platform for the first time, we do YouTube Lives on Thursdays. Every Thursday at about 6:15, we fire up. This is the July month in review, and we're going to be reviewing the shows where we did Therapy Modalities Explained, and then What is Sensory Defensiveness, and then episode 280 was Mental Health, Therapy's Effect on Emotional Intelligence, and then lastly, if we have time, I enjoyed the show 281, What are True Needs versus Wants. So got a lot that we've had going on. I hope you've been following along with us. This is where you get insights directly from a panel of therapists, usually, unless it's the July month in review where we have Mr. Cloninger hanging out with us again. Hello, sir.
Hello.
And Mr. Neil comes out behind the curtains and shares his brilliance with us all through the show.
Brilliance, I doubt it, but hello.
It is brilliant. But not the delivery of therapy services in any way. Click subscribe, help us out to be found. We're getting some traction on YouTube. We got 2 new YouTube subscribers that we want to give a shout out to. And that would be, I'm going to butcher the name, but it's Toshiaq, Toshiak, I guess.
I'm gonna say it's Tosha Q. Like I'm
Tosha
guessing
Q.
that the Q might be a last name initial, maybe.
That is, yeah. Well, the YouTube names are.
You never know.
You never
Mine's
know, yeah.
different.
And then Mr. Trevor Brown, welcome to the platform. We enjoy getting you guys to subscribe. So tell your friends, and we hope you enjoy what we do. Let me see. Also, contact at throughAtherapistEyes.com is the way that you contact us. And I had a cool email that I want to go over real quick in the beginning here. So that's coming up here in a minute. This is the human emotional experience, which we do endeavor to figure out together. So welcome aboard, those of you that are new. So the email was kind of cool. Neil, did you see that come through?
I did not.
You did not see it.
Well, I've been entrenched in email issues. I did not check that email.
How did you not catch the email, man? Amongst all of the crashing that you've been dealing with the last couple of weeks. Is that a fair way to say email crashed?
No, it's not.
It is not.
I just call it email cluster right now, but that's a whole nother term. But yeah, no, it didn't crash.
So we got a cool email from episode 221, and it was the show that said, "Don't take things personally in marriage or family." And who is this from? Did I write it down?
You did not.
I did not. Fail. So anyway, the email says, "Is it possible to truly detach emotionally and not take things personally in intimate relationships? Or are we inherently wired to be affected by our loved ones' words and actions?" And we get, questions from time to time, and we interact with people. So really, contact it through a therapist is a fun way to get direct interaction with us. I follow it pretty closely. I have it clipped to my email every day. So I really thought this was a really cool question, though, because it is a tough situation and circumstance. So I'm curious off the cuff, you guys, what you think and see from just your own perspectives. Can you actually get to a place where you don't take things personally from a spouse?
You can try,
Yeah.
but that's way easier said than done.
It's one of those easier said than done
Yeah.
things. Neil, what's your take off the cuff?
Same thing. It's one of those things.
What he said.
Yeah, what ditto.
Everything he said.
I think it really just boils down to your relationship. If you actually have a solid relationship, I think you can avoid most of those situations. But I think even when you have a solid relationship, there's going to be those times when they're going to say something that's going to strike that nerve, and you're going to take it personal. I don't care who you are. So
it's a common thing to experience. It's a normal thing to do. So in an idealized way, which is what we talked about in that show, that's what we're trying to get at. And it really is a skill. It's a skill that we work to build and grow. And as you're newlyweds, you're probably not going to have that great a skill set developed. But then as you mature in your relationship and as you have healthy characteristics that are built and as trust grows over the years, these are all factors that really help that to be actually possible. Because you can get pretty good at not taking things personally, and that's actually called a healthy relationship. They do exist. I don't know where, I rarely see them, I guess, but I'm a therapist, so...
would you say you develop a healthy emotional intelligence?
You can develop healthy emotional intelligence. Good play off of episode what? Let's land it.
280?
That doesn't sound confident, but I think he's right. So there's another big factor when it comes to this, and it's actually in my book on marriage that I think is, it's got a pub date of December 17th, by the way. I'm pretty excited about it and getting pretty proud about it. But in there, I talk about a golden egg is the goal. And it's a weird way of saying that the goal is developing a high-level emotional safety between you and your spouse, right? So the goal is to get to a place where you have a high level of emotional safety, which makes it more likely to be able to do this, which, as you say, Adam, is easier said than done. Another big factor that goes with this is a scale that I've talked about on the show that I think is a really important thing to understand, and it starts on the left and has a bell that we want to get as close to the middle as possible, where you're related when you begin to relate to somebody, and then as you get closer and closer attached, you become interrelated. And when you're interrelated, you really do affect each other. So the question is a really good one, which is why I'm talking about it on the front end of the show. So but then you cross over into codependent land. And that is a crossover that we don't want, because when you become codependent, which is a natural state to a certain extent that we don't want, but you basically become what the other person is. If the other person's well, you're well. If the other person's not well, then you're not well. So you develop behaviors and attitudes and activities that try to make the other person well so that you'll be well. That's the nature of codependency. Now, I know all that's a lot, but that's what we don't want. So not taking things personally is easy to do when we're related, but then when we're interrelated, it becomes more difficult. When you cross over into codependence, it becomes really hard to do. But that's something that you can work on internally. And then the last part of the scale, by the way, is dependent, which is really, really difficult. It's like super codependent, really strong characteristics there. So what we're trying to do is be interrelated, have high levels of safety and trust so that we can not take things personally. And that is a really golden space to be in. Really hard, elusive. Once you get it, it's not like you keep it. So that's where you really have to maintain healthy relationships. So I thought it was a really cool question. Is it possible to truly detach emotionally? Arguably, no, you don't want to be detached, but you definitely want to avoid as much as possible taking things personally. If you're able to not take things personally, you can actually hear what your spouse is trying to say. If you take things personally, you go off into a rabbit hole. So onward, nice transition
segue
here.
there.
That's a nice segue, right?
5 minutes later to get to your segue. How do you feel?
So Adam joins us on the month review, and we go down some sort of rabbit hole, and I don't know what's coming here, ladies and gentlemen, but he's purposely getting a reaction from Neil. Did I get that right?
Well, you'll see. Okay, so
That's what he said. He actually said he's just going to enjoy our reactions to
so
whatever this is.
I
Where are we
always
going?
Every time I do this, I always find something that I thought was interesting or weird or strange. So I just happened to see this video, I don't know, a week or so ago, where it was, these cooking competitions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you already know where
Chef
I'm going?
shows.
No, I don't
Okay.
know.
So it's cooking competitions, and the video, and I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, I don't know if this is real or not. So, but this is the video I actually saw, and I did some. Well, I get to that in a minute. So during the cooking show, they were going to use a secret ingredient.
Okay.
So after they
Habaneros?
try
Sorry.
it, they prepare something and they bring it out.
You're not even going to respond to my habanero comment?
It's not habaneros.
Okay.
So
Those are really, really hot.
this is worse than habaneros.
Oh, my gosh.
So the first woman, she tries it. She's kind of saying that's strange flavor. Second person tries it. That's a interesting, little bit different flavor. So he says, well, what is it? And he gives 3 things. And he mentions, I think it was...
The chef does.
Chef does. And I can't remember what 2 of them are, but the one that I thought was really strange, one of them said human flesh.
No.
So I'm thinking, okay, this sounds, but the show went on and they were pretty upset because the 2 people who
Tasters?
yes, they were pretty upset. So my first thing is, and this is where Neil's going to think. So what do you think I did, Neil?
You Googled it.
That's right. That's what I did. So
Of course he did.
apparently, you can't really find a whole lot of information, but this is what I thought was strange. There's only one state in the U.S. where it's actually illegal to consume human flesh.
Only one?
Only one. And that's because back in the 60s, they had some kind of issue with some kind of cult where they made a law because there was concern about them eating human flesh. But the other 49 states are perfectly legal. So I'm doing my research, my due diligence.
Dear God.
So I'm doing my, asking the questions like a serial killer or whatever. How do you get human flesh? Where do you
The
purchase it?
FBI's on Adam's tail here in about a week.
Yeah, how do you get human flesh for cooking purposes? So you really can't find a whole lot of information.
Oh, God.
But I just thought it was neat, and I thought
So it's a real thing.
I mean, I don't know. It's on a video. I mean, it could have been bogus for publicity or whatever. But like I said, I looked it up, and it's only one. It's actually only illegal in one state. So I was like, And I mean, I don't know where you'd get it or how you'd get it or
Craigslist.
Yeah,
Craigslist. Hey, Amazon has everything. I got full car parts or tractor parts for all of my tractor components, and I couldn't even get them from Lowe's or Home Depot or tractor stores. So I think we should Google Amazon and see if
you
they
go
have.
right ahead.
Okay, I don't even know what to do with this. I guess this is just a reaction.
Yes, a reaction. I just thought it was an
disturbedness.
interesting, weird thing, and I knew he was gonna be like, "Well, you Googled it, yeah." So I
Well, just FYI, I've seen that before, and it actually was like a prank show. They were messing with them, so it's not really. I think I
Okay.
saw something after the fact that's like, yeah, it wasn't really legitimate because it was.
They
It
were
was a
mad.
shocker. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
they'd
they were
be
mad.
pissed.
I imagine they would
But
be.
yeah, and then the rabbit hole you go down is like, what are the what are the logistics of this?
Yeah,
How would they actually get the food?
So I did. So that's
But yeah, that's the human psyche. Like you think about it, it's if they eat and it's like, oh, okay, well that's not bad. And then you tell them what it is. It's like,
It's a really
Wait, hang on.
disturbing thought that psychologically I believe and find to be true generally is that if you can think of it, like simply think of it, some human around the world has actually done it.
well. I mean, there's still cannibals now.
well, I was watching
Yeah.
another show.
So I mean, of course they have.
I was watching another show where there was some tribes are Aborigines, I think, in Australia or somewhere, and they had this thing where they had this disease that only affected this particular tribe, and they were slowly dying. Well, come to find out, there's a couple. Have you ever watched Mr. Ballin before?
I have.
He's a fantastic storyteller. I think it was him.
Is this
but
the one where it's similar to mad cow and
it's
Alzheimer's?
right, exactly. But come to find out, it was because of the ritualistic and the.
Human brain protein and stuff.
Cass needs to know. We have a YouTube comment. What state is it legal in? We need to know.
Illegal.
No,
then.
it's only.
I'm sorry.
It's
Yeah,
only
right.
illegal in one
I
state.
can't even say it right. That doesn't sound right. Okay, what's
So
the one state?
Do I
that
need
is
to
ma-
Google it, or she? Not, are you scared? Are you scared to Google it?
She just wants to know. Which
We have to know now.
I have to look.
Okay,
You,
You-
don't
you get-
remember?
No.
How do you not know this?
It was
better
like Indiana.
I
or
guarantee
something.
it ain't West Virginia. I'll tell you that. All you people that like to make West Virginia jokes, that's my home state. Don't think it's West Virginia.
They won't make it illegal,
We
but
wouldn't.
it's hard to chew with no teeth.
Oh, come on.
Come on.
Come on. Dang. Yeah,
Got
I
that.
have walked.
But
in
no,
that.
it is a very interesting thing with the original tribes and those types of things, the survival instincts, the human like it is.
hunter-gatherer societies. And,
Well, I mean, I've even thought a couple times like thinking about cultures that eat dogs and cats or stuff like that, or horses.
Yeah,
There's this
bats
weird
and-
situation that like we have this thing where it's just
wet
kind
markets.
of weird. Right.
Look.
When I went to Peru, we had a guinea pig. We ate a guinea pig.
No,
But
you
like
did
here,
not.
yeah, that's something they eat in Peru. Guinea pigs in the mountains is a common food.
Oh wow.
So, it's that societal changes, and old time tribes would eat, they'd eat the flesh of the enemies when they destroyed them, or in the case of that one tribe, that was a way
eat the
to
heart.
the heart, the brain, those types
The
of things.
brain's what was
Right.
doing it. is the brain.
Right.
Yeah, but like you have
You know,
those
it's
things
funny.
where
That is not as bizarre as you would really think when you start really getting into human behavior.
It's Idaho.
Idaho. The folks in Idaho.
Idaho's the only state where it's illegal.
there you go, Cass.
Now, again, I didn't get much information on how you'd actually acquire that.
Well, once again, if someone cut off their own flesh and then gave it to you, you're not assaulting them. There's no anything like that. It has
All
to be
right, we gotta
voluntary.
go. we gotta move
Thanks.
on.
Good rabbit hole.
That's enough.
Okay.
What,
Soylent Green, fantastic.
what does that even mean?
And there was the movie. I think it's I don't know if the movie's called Soylent Green, but basically the idea that there's is spoilers if you haven't seen it, but basically the idea is there's this product or food that society eats, and then there's all the secret ingredient is supposedly there's people in Soylent Green.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Is that what movie is that? Is that Soylent Green is the name of the movie, or is that the product that they sold? I don't remember because I've never seen it. I just know of it, and I'm surprised you don't know this one. That's like it's like a weird Stanley Kubrick type movie.
Neil,
Yeah,
I love cooking, but I'm not into this type of cooking, so I don't know.
Well,
anything
Soylent
about
Green is a fictional movie. It's along the same lines as the 1984 and what was the Clockwork Orange? That kind of weird, kind of dystopian.
Oh,
type
there
of
are
emails.
weird. Yeah, okay.
So, but yeah, Soylent Green. I love it.
I was thinking they did a Twilight Zone
Maybe it was Twilight Zone. I don't
think they had
know.
a Twilight Zone episode where that was that.
Cass, where's that from? You tell us since you're involved.
All right. And while she is, and while we get let's get away from the degenerative rabbit hole that is alarming and concerning for us all, and talk about episode 278. Are we ready to transition?
Yep.
Okay. We're going
1973. It's a movie.
1973. Well, that's when I was born.
Yep.
That's old school movie time.
It was.
How did you know that?
I've just seen the weird shorts and clips every once in a while. A lot of the memes and stuff that come with it. It's just...
That's impressive. All right, the 3 questions to therapy modalities explain. Do you know what type of therapy your therapist practices? Does it matter what type of therapy a therapist uses? And should I pick a therapist by looking for a certain type of therapy? I am really kind of curious for this particular episode review show, I'm really curious in your all's thoughts about these questions that we kind of kicked around, because John and I really geeked out, didn't we?
Yeah, you guys went really hardcore on that one.
No, y'all wouldn't do that.
Dude, it was fun, man. We enjoyed it. Honestly, I think John enjoyed that show probably more than any before. I was pretty close as well. We were talking about all kinds of therapy modalities, and honestly, it's a lot of them. Like, what would you say the number that we talked about, Neil?
I mean, it was probably
You talking about types of therapists?
20, yeah. There were
Over and under, I'm thinking 30.
Yeah.
You know.
I think by the time we got to because you guys kept talking and adding more to it, I would say
Right.
over under like 25 to 30 of different different
Therapy modalities.
How a therapist uses it, the different stuff that comes
There
with
are
it.
a lot of them, Adam. But what do you think? Do you know what type of therapy your therapist practices? What do you think? People know or ask, or have you ever even considered it? If you've considered going to a therapist?
Well, I mean, it's like anything else. If you're looking for something, you're going to Google it or whatever else, and you pick one of those 30 therapists, and boom.
I guess I'm wondering if
your
people
thing pops
care.
up. I would say some would, because you probably want something that might specialize. Just like you're going to a lawyer, you want a lawyer that specializes in whatever you're dealing with. So if
Right.
you're dealing with a specific thing, I mean, if you're weird cooking fetishes or whatever it is, you'd probably want to find some kind of
You got to go back there. Don't take us back.
And whatever. I mean, I don't know what the 30 types were, so I just picking something strange. So.
Yeah, Neil, what do you think? Do people really think about that and process that out on a individual person's level?
I think it would shift. I think if you're new to therapy, it's more about, do I connect with that therapist? Are they really helping me? But I think if you're experienced and you have a lot of therapists, you start realizing like, wait, this person practices this one worked this. So
Why are they so different?
Right. So I think at first it's like, do they help me or not? I don't think they go in being like, oh, I want a CBT therapist versus a psychodynamic therapist or something. Like, they don't go in thinking that, because they don't know what that actually means, right?
No.
So it's really about, what are the reviews? How many what's their Yelp reviews or what's their therapy reviews? And then when you sit down and talk to them, do I gel with them? So yeah, no one thinks about that.
I can tell you that every now and again, people do present and ask, do you do this type of therapy? And a lot of times, actually, it for whatever reason is EMDR. And
Acronyms.
eye desensitization movement something.
Okay.
EMDR, whatever that stands for, I forget. But it's a type of experience with trauma treatment that people will actually ask for. Sometimes, obviously, CBD. There's cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
CBD is different.
CBD is a different type of therapy with THC.
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
EMDR, eye movement desensitization
And reprocessing.
and reprocessing therapy. EMDR,
The A is silent.
Okay, yeah, but I agree, Neil. I don't think people really think about this, but you need to be aware. And therapists are. I mean, you heard John and I talking about all these things. We need to be aware because it's science-based interventions.
Yeah, I think when it comes to people, they would look at like family therapy, art therapy, substance abuse therapy. They look at like the topics. They don't look at the practice behind them. I think if you're looking for a therapist, that's all that a person would normally think about. I'm dealing with an addiction, or I'm dealing with my family, or a marriage therapy. They look at that side of it, not, oh, well, what's the root cause that helps us deal with those problems. So I think that's the biggest shift. It's not what you're practicing. It's like, what's the subject matter? How do they help me? That's all I think most people care about.
Did you say art therapy?
Yeah.
It's a thing. Oh, yeah.
Art?
Totally.
Mm-hmm. My wife
yeah.
wanted to do that.
As a matter of fact, I worked with an art therapist and learned with her a little bit. It was really, really cool. She was able to show doing art therapy, get this, with a schizophrenic patient. So that's delusions and psychosis and hallucinations and some other things that kind of go in with what we call negative symptoms, kind of like depression. And so, I mean, when they're decompensated, they're not quite right. And she showed a transition all the way through like 30 sessions. And every session she had the person do a picture as she was working with them. And the first picture was like non-conceivable what the person was drawing and whatnot. And as the person went through therapy, this art therapist fascinatingly was able to show more and more form, more and more concrete, more and more definition of the actual picture, which was a person in a house.
Could it not just be getting better at art?
No.
Well, there's also
No.
the other thing with art therapy, this is what my wife was leaning towards going there, is like, one, when you're dealing with young kids, they don't have the vocabulary to really build out and say what they express, or they can't write. So art therapy is a way for them to express themselves.
Absolutely.
That's one way. But the other part is that when you look at using it with some of the adults or teenagers, there's things in the colors that you pick. There's things that those types of physical mode, like there's a lot to it that kind of gets into the primal side of your brain that kind of helps you kind of release and open up or let things out without writing it. Because there's people that you ask my oldest kid to explain it to you and write something, you won't get anything, but he'd draw a picture about it.
It's a powerful thing.
Actually,
I don't know.
No. Listen, it is a powerful, powerful thing. And so what you'll see with kids, especially, as you say, Neil, that don't have the verbology, the cognitive ability to describe things, but you'll see it with adults too. We will draw stuff, all right? And you will see imagery that comes out of that and consistent from drawing to drawing when you're working with somebody. And so when you have world events like wars, you will see bombs and you will see things that they saw or worked up with. There was a kid that was working with a colleague of mine, and they ended up seeing a trauma scene being repeated. And don't you know, it was a hurricane. And so the scribble, what looked like scribble, began to be noticed as like, oh, this is a trauma experience this person experienced. You can try this at home. I'll give you something just to demonstrate your skepticism. What I want you to do is not necessarily art therapy, but I want you to do 3 steps with something, and you'll see how your subconscious can totally describe what it is that's going on. I learned this at a conference. So this is, by the way, a journaling skill. And so what you do is you just sit down with a piece of paper, and you just free write. And you literally just write whatever comes to your mind. And you do that for about 10, 15 minutes. It may be ineligible, not recognizable to you. What's the word I'm looking for?
Incomprehensible?
Incomprehensible, right? And then what you do after you stop free writing for about 10 minutes is you circle 10 important words, and you list those words down. And then you take out about 4 of those words, which leaves you about 6 words that are circled, and then you want to write a sentence using as many of those words as possible. And that sentence, when I did this, was absolutely on point with what my self was working on at the time. It was remarkable.
So just think about that with the picture side. When you start drawing pictures and you start seeing a common theme with your pictures, it's
same thing.
Makes sense. Why do I keep drawing a lawnmower? Because I have to paint it.
Well, he picks on you for this
I love the lawnmower thing. I just think that's crazy. But I think the interesting about that show, when you look at the modalities, I love seeing the adaptation of the practice, because you talk about, you think about Freud and Adler or whatever it is, and you talk about like you and John, especially John geeking out because he's been involved so long. It's funny to say you mentioned like, oh yeah, he was my professor back in 1910. Like, what the heck? What's going on? It's like
you say 1910.
I did.
He learned directly from the 1910 trainer. Yeah.
Yeah. So but it was really cool seeing all the different modalities, and you see the adaptability of the practice and the growth of understanding the human nature and psyche
and we really do that behind the scenes. One of the things I really want you to take from that episode that was really cool to look in depthy detail on all of the different modalities, and particularly, younger or newer therapists, you really want to kind of get a couple modalities that you learn. But then as you've been doing it for a while, we really do that, Neil. Like, I will see the presenting problem and I'll look at this type of therapy. We'll look at reality therapy, or I will look at like your thinking errors and switch midstream if I find a lot of self-loathing and a lot of negative thinking, and I will really go into cognitive behavioral strategies. If I'm looking and realize that you've got some struggles with, self-harming or negative coping skills, I'll look at motivational interviewing strategies. Like, I will adjust because I've kind of worked with these different things, and it evolves as our relationship evolves. I pull different things into the relationship and apply them really specifically. But that's hard to get to the place of being able to do. A lot of therapists will say, well, I have an eclectic view, and that means you use multiple modalities. You really want to kind of get to a place where you kind of get precise in what it is that.
And I think you talked about, it's like when a therapist starts, you should really focus on one particular one, really understand it before you move to your next.
Well, that was a debate that we had in my head.
I think you should.
What John said about that, because that always bothered me. I never liked that. Neil Newfield, if you remember in college, maintained that that's the way you do it. I always didn't like that.
I think if you're going to do it, because like even coming from technology background, from my side, like I could go Windows or I could go Mac. And going really trying to straddle both at the same time, you can learn it, but either you're not going to be as good at both, or it's going to take you longer to grow. So I think in therapy, that's the same idea. You would pick one, maybe a second modality, and then you'd basically really hone in, and then you move to the next one, you hone in on that one. So, but, but I think the key to this, and we can move to the next because I know we're running short.
Yeah, my eyes just went. I was like, holy crap.
I think it's important for people to understand it's not just some people sit on the couch talking to you. There's so much behind what a therapist and counselor stuff does. And so that's what I really want people to see through this. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of science that you guys go through.
I mean, there's constructivist therapy. There's story, writing that goes into constructiveness therapy. There's ACT therapy that's new. There's behavioral therapy. There's Reiki therapy. There's energy type forms. There's Gestalt therapy. I mean, there's so much, Adam. So what do you think? First of all, did we deal with your skepticism a little bit? Curious with art therapy.
Not completely, because let me
got your brain working a little bit.
Let me just say it real briefly. To me, it's like people talk about dreams. Oh, well, you dreamed this. You must have an issue with this. I don't buy that at all. If somebody says, "Oh, well, you dreamed about a butterfly. This is going to happen," no, you don't know.
Yeah, dreams are a little different.
I don't buy, and that's why I was concerned about the art thing.
Well, there's a skill in a way that you do it. It's very purposeful in how you do art. It's not just give you a canvas and paint and be done with it. There's actually, and that's why it's impressive, is that there's actually exercises you do that has you do something for a certain reason, and there's reason stuff behind it. So while you think of art therapy, like, yeah, you can just draw on a notepad. No, there's actually a lot to it to direct you towards there.
Well,
So
I just meant if they say, "Oh, well, you're using a lot of red today," that means it's no.
It's a lot more in depth.
It's a lot more in depth than that. As a matter of fact, there's even a psychological testing tool. There are many 100 or so more psychological tests that are developed, well researched, very science based, and you'll simply draw a picture of person, house, tree. I think it's person, house, tree. Anyway, my old colleague used this stuff a lot. And what you draw, whether you have fruit on the tree, whether the tree has roots, whether the house has windows or more windows or, a chimney, those things actually have clinical significance, Adam. They really have clinical significance.
I don't buy it.
Because it's been well researched with thousands of people that have drawn these pictures, and we're able to extrapolate what goes on in the human mind. What we're talking about is a lot of the subconsciousness, a lot of the underpinnings that we behave on, but we have behavior and have never connected it to what? these things actually are able to connect the dots a little bit. Dreams are a little bit different. I don't have time to go into that, but that's a little bit different. So, yeah, anyway, cool. So, Adam, what do you think? Should I pick a therapist by looking for a certain type of therapy?
I mean, I would do it.
You would?
Yeah.
He Googles everything. Of course he would.
Yeah.
He'd probably find a quiz. What kind of therapy
Wait.
works good for me?
Well, okay. Well, I'm skeptical as well in return, Adam. Why would you try to find a therapist based on a particular modality?
So like I said, the same way with a lawyer. If I'm going to have a certain, real estate issue, I'm going to try to find a real estate lawyer. To me, it'd be the same thing for therapists. If I had trouble with drugs, I'd be finding a substance abuse therapist.
Okay, that's different, and that's an awesome transition.
So, I mean, why would I not do it for anything, no matter what one of the 30 types you have?
So you're wanting... I got all choked up.
Am I misunderstanding your question?
Maybe.
Okay.
What you're talking about is you're thinking about the issue that I have and the therapist specializing in that issue.
Okay.
But we're talking about the therapy modality that therapist uses to work with your issue.
Okay.
Like, I don't think you're going to have the
Right.
ability of thinking about the 50 different modalities.
'Cause I don't
that
know
are
what they
used.
are.
You don't know what they are.
Okay.
But you want to know the therapist can help you with your issue.
Right.
So that's a
I
different...
can see somebody looking up for that.
Right. Because my message are two, in addition to the one that you came up with, Adam, or Neil, to really know what we want to get across. One is, no, you really don't need to worry about what therapy modality your therapist uses. It's much more, Neil, what you were talking about, trust and rapport, and are they going to be able to
Right.
help me? But the other real big thing that comes out of this show that I really thought was cool, what did I miss? What do you got?
Not going to go to just anyone for sex therapy. Find a specialized therapist.
Okay, well, there are people. Who said that?
Julie.
Oh, okay. He's getting texted. Yeah.
Shit, that was just an example.
There are sex therapists.
You know, that wasn't on your list.
It wasn't, Neil. You're exactly correct. Sex therapy modality. Although, is that a modality? I don't know that that's a I don't think that's a modality. That's curious.
See, she took it
sex
the same way I did.
Yeah, it's
Obviously,
topic oriented.
I mean, obviously.
It's topic oriented.
I mean, I don't think the therapist gives you sex therapy.
Oh, they do. Oh, they do. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean,
dude, it's funny.
I got what you're saying.
I know
Okay.
what you're saying, but I'm trying to make it serious because we do I like talk about with men that topic. It's funny. We get into that. If it's clinically appropriate, Adam. Anyway, all right. The other big thing, really, the third is there is a great divide in our mental health and substance abuse field that drives me nuts. Therapists, listen out there. I'm going to make the bold statement. If you don't know about substance abuse therapy, you owe it to your clientele to go and get training, to get experience understanding substance abuse addiction-related issues, because so many therapists do not. Mental health therapists will say, oh, I don't work with substance abuse and refer, or substance abuse therapists will say, oh, I don't work with mental health, let me refer you. And guys, that just creates major blind spots. I don't think you can adequately work with somebody if you don't have knowledge of both, because you will see substance abuse issues in your practice. And if you're not aware of substance abuse issues, you will straight miss it. And that's, I consider that to be a problem.
so you're not suggesting they don't get referred, but you're just suggesting that everybody needs to have a little bit of knowledge of it.
A little bit of knowledge. Yeah.
You don't
You don't
understand
specialize in it and you don't work with it. Yeah, right.
Right.
I'm fine with that. But you've got to get some training. I'm glad you clarified that. But you got to get some training to know what you're looking at. Otherwise, you're going to work with an alcoholic who's self-medicating. People love to use that phrase. No, it's addiction.
Or people who are in a house with someone who has substance abuse.
Absolutely.
So sometimes it's not the person themselves having it, but then they're affected because someone they know.
I mean, it's an issue that affects addiction, 10 to 15% of our population. How many people have mental health therapy needs that have been parented by or have a child of?
Well, I mean, you think about it. If 10 to 15% have an addiction, how many people are they exposed to? So now you're looking at 30 to 40% of society is in some way affected by someone with an addiction, right?
Easy. And I would say that's a conservative estimate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Truly.
I think those numbers are going up.
Way up now as well, by the way. Also, it's more of a profound issue. Okay, so that's where we landed. All right, ready to transition? We have plenty of time for all 4 shows. I say,
Yep.
with
Sure we
sarcasm.
do.
So,
3, 2, 1, go.
yeah, and I'm not gonna rush them, guys. We'll catch up as needed and keep playing that game. So, where are we at? Episode 279. What is sensory defensiveness? So the 3 questions were, what is sensory defensiveness? What causes this? And what do we do about it? How do we live with it? Neil, it's not fair to ask you. Adam, have you ever heard before you listen to all these shows? Because you listen to them all, don't you? And you tell all of your friends, and you have subscribed to YouTube, and you do give us
I
the
do tell
thumbs
people
up.
about it, but
Yeah.
I think I like it. I like not hearing it until now because then you have a
I understand. But, guys, that's your job. That's
Yeah.
that's every listener's job. So, do you ever heard of sensory defensiveness?
nope,
You got blanks, don't you?
nope,
Yeah.
no idea.
Neil, what stuck with you about what this is? Do you remember listening? And it was a show with Victoria and I to tune you back in.
This month was really weird because it was like Victoria, John, like it was only
We had
one
a
other
weird
therapist. It was weird.
Yeah.
Actually,
Summer scheduling.
well,
yeah.
and I said it before. I related a lot to this because half the people in my house kind of
did say
had
that.
that very similar thing, and so I think it's interesting. So sensory defensiveness is when you're very sensitive to outside stuff. So like if it's someone's touching you or noises or light or like all those
Any of
sensory
the sensory
things
experience.
basically affects you. Now this isn't, and because it's like defensiveness, it's basically it causes you to react in some way or another. And it's not, this
Okay.
isn't like OCD. This isn't like this obsessive thing. It's really just a fact. Like, you know, my oldest kid and my wife, in the morning, my wife's like, shh, don't talk so loud. Or when they get in the car, they have to turn the radio on because it's just too much stimulation coming on at one time.
Okay.
I can't stand Chuck E. Cheese. I took my kids there like maybe twice. Because I go in there and it's just too much for me. I don't know. I get way overstimulated.
So like crowds or
right.
or something simple like you have to have the volume on a even number instead of odd or
No,
something.
that's a weird thing.
Well, no, it's an OCD thing.
Yeah.
That's OCD. This is really your sense of touch, smell, sight, hearing. The 5 senses.
Taste.
And taste.
Too much noise going on, too much light. too much
Overstimulated.
Okay.
Too bright. Too loud. The
Too
tags
spicy.
on people's shirts, drive kids crazy, right?
Yeah.
So they have to cut them off. You find a lot of this with ADHD. You find a lot of this with things like autism or Down's kids, special needs. Those developmental kind of troubles that people have a lot of this sensory defensiveness. But to your point, Neil, the thing that I think we kind of got to in that show a little bit is this is way more common than you would think. Like I said, I can't stand going to Chuck E. Cheese. My buddy Aaron, he knows this. We would go over to his house and he had every freaking toy made noise when his kids were little. It drove me nuts. Like I'd be like looking at my wife, like it's time to go, right? Like we gotta go. I gotta go. This is too much. Like this freaking gun. And it was like, I can't stand this anymore. Right?
Okay.
So clearly, I have some auditory.
Well, the
defensiveness.
funny part with my household is because my oldest does have, like, there's certain things like taste, palates, touching, like he gets overwhelmed, like he's always blowing his nose or cleaning his ear up, blah, blah, blah. But he whistles constantly. And it drives my wife nuts because legitimately he'll whistle. My wife will yell at him. Half a second later, he'll go like, oh, sorry. Whistling.
knows.
He goes right back to whistling. Like it's so it's just funny the differences in sensory defensiveness between my wife and the noise and my kid and all the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so it's
I had a kazoo when I was a kid. You know, the little musical instrument.
Mhm.
I loved that thing.
Your mom did not.
It got gone. I
Surprise.
lost it.
Sure you did.
I think she took it, Adam.
She may have.
I think she took it because it was driving her crazy. I mean, I played that kazoo like constantly, man. I was like all through the house,
But yeah,
all day long.
and I think that's something that, in the example you talked about, you had that guy who thought he was introverted. No, he just really didn't like being in crowds, right?
Right.
So you start finding out, oh, here's why I don't like going to parties.
So let me slow that down, Neil, because you're absolutely right. Like one of the things that I really made a point with this show is that experience with that particular person. So there's a lot of normal, as with most things in mental health, there are continuums, right? So there's a lot of normal experience with this sensory defensiveness, with any one of those defensive experiences. But when it rises to a clinical issue, you've got to understand this is really disruptive, okay? It's like nails on a chalkboard kind of experience for somebody that really gets these sensory defensive experiences. This is why autistic kids will lose their shit when they get into a situation where the noises are too loud.
Right.
They will hit. They will become violent because they just can't stand it. Their experience is so disruptive.
It's so uncomfortable for them.
Very uncomfortable is not even a near enough strong word, right? Is what I'm trying to lay out here. So this person I was working with wondered that if he had social phobia because he would avoid parties, he would avoid events, he wouldn't go to things. Then he thought he had ADHD because he was just scattered with his thinking and couldn't understand what was going on. I worked with him for a very long time, and something wasn't matching in my mind what's happening and what he was experiencing. And I really have no idea how we fell onto it, but I brought this up and we explored it for a session. I didn't think much of it because it was just a little bit of a stab in the dark, which therapists listening, that happens all the time when you're working with people. Explore the full person. Explore the full experiences because you will come across things that you never dreamed was going on for this person. So he came back to me and he was like, dude, he's like, I looked into this. I can't believe it. I think this is something I've been dealing with my whole life. And I'm like, wow. Because as you started to describe, Neil, yeah, he thought he was phobic. He thought that he was like having anxiety problems. And all it was, he put on some muffed ears and he tells his wife when he has too much, he goes out and he takes breaks from the event because now he knows what's going on his whole life and he completely can engage with people again. It was a big deal. That was a big deal for his revelation and his exploring of that. And we identified it. So very, very helpful to look at this. Makes sense? Questions in your head buzzing around? Did you know this was common?
To a certain extent, yes.
Do you have anything that drives you crazy?
I have been in the past. On occasion, I've like been really stressed out, like being somewhere where there's too many people there, like, how can I say this? Impeding my flow of what I need to do. It's like I start freaking out. It's like I just...
Your routines are gone, or what do you mean?
Well, like
impeding.
I can tell you like the last time it happened to me, the Walmart Supercenter thing, and they used to have it. You know, the aisles are like, is it the Supercenter? Is that what you call it? Where they had the little small one?
Small.
The neighborhood ones?
Okay, the neighborhood.
Oh yeah, the marketplace.
So the aisles are real small, and I was there one time, and everybody else was there when I was there, and they're out with these hand jacks. They're like hand trucks or whatever you call them, and they're
stocking.
They're stocking, and then you come down one aisle and somebody can you ring. And I remember,
to be clear, they're not stalking you. They're stalking the shelves.
Stalking the shelves.
Okay.
So I remember like freaking out and just like, just I remember going through self-checkout. I'm just like to the point where I just about put everything down
to
and
get
just
out.
walked out because like it's
too much.
Yeah.
I never really thought about that. I've never come across what you've just described with sensory defensiveness being spatial orientation. And I'm totally sure that that's something people experience. Yeah.
That happens to me occasionally, but it's not always.
That's interesting. I thought you were going somewhere else with like, something different with like routines and patterns that you don't like being disrupted. But no, you're talking about distance, proxemics between you and another person in space.
Well, not so much that because, like I can be in a crowd. But,
right.
But if I'm trying to do something and I can't because it's kind of like traffic.
Yeah. Road rage.
Traffic drives you crazy.
Absolutely.
I need to get from here to there, but there's all these idiots that's in my way or in the left-hand lane or whatever, or the morons that block intersections when they're supposed to wait their turn.
Do it right and get off my lawn. Sorry.
No, that's actually, I mean, that's an interesting thing because yeah, it's not only just the fact that you're getting blocked. It's like you said, it's stopping you from getting to that accomplishing that task, right?
Yeah.
So it's not really the fact that it's small aisles and stuff, but it's because it's small aisles, stuff's in the way, you can't push your cart through, you can't do your stuff.
You're being prevented from doing what you need to do. It's just
So the question is, which sense is that? Is that your sense of time? Is that where your sense of purpose?
That's why I said spatial almost, or
No, because I can be in
but
crowds.
it's not really claustrophobic. Like it's
Yeah,
not
right.
a claustrophobic. It's just that in itself is like, I don't know. That's a
It's
weird
the
one.
same thing as traffic. Same thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. It's bad. I don't know. I'm going to move on because it's something I need to think about. Spatial purpose. Is there cognitive sensitivities? I don't know. It feels like that's maybe in the ballpark with sensory defensiveness. Maybe not. I'm not sure.
Chris can be thinking about this.
I am. I'll be watching the Pittsburgh Pirates tonight, thinking, what was that he said?
No, he won't. I hope he's not.
No, I will not. I promise. So we finished up at talking about this on how do you manage it, and I mentioned a couple things anyway. So parents, if you got kids that's there, you know, there's itchy sweaters that kids get real defensive with, the tags I mentioned. So you can do some things like softer clothing. You take breaks when you need breaks from the stimulus. Schools have this stuff happen a lot with kids that are trying to learn and get real disrupted. Their disobedience, their disruption in the classroom might be because they're seeing too much and they need to be in the front, or they're hearing too much. And so you can do music at parties. Put your earbuds in and you hear just your music, and so you're canceling out a lot of stuff. So there's some real functional behavioral things that you can do. Also, to begin to repair this, because we can repair some of this. Occupational therapists kind of have this much more than we do. They will do like brushes and all kinds of amazing things with like balls and rubbing. Trichotillomania, pulling out hair, is really disruptive. That's sort of sensory prone. You do hair brushing. You can do holding ice cubes to feel something else and get away from what your senses are bothering you. So there's a lot there that we do to actually repair some of this with occupational therapy or cope with it with behavioral strategies and whatnot. So sensory defensiveness, Adam, it's a thing. Also,
I believe it.
Also, I'll transition with YouTube comment says, art therapy is wonderful for people. It works! ! Just saying.
Good for you.
The listening audience knows. All right, we have time for one more show, not the last one, which is okay. Where is it on my thing? Okay, how does mental health / therapy affect emotional intelligence? Episode 280. The 3 questions: what is emotional intelligence? Can we learn emotional intelligence, or is it more of the nature versus nurture on the nurturing learning side? And can emotional intelligence be diminished or destroyed? I don't know. I guess this is another one. We had weird shows where heavy clinical talk this month. I think I just want to go to your non-clinical brains again. Like, Adam, do you know what emotional intelligence...
I never heard it until a while ago when he mentioned it.
You never have?
Never heard it.
Really? That's surprising. Man, you're getting your head blown today. Sensory defensiveness, art, therapy.
I gotta leave now, man.
He's got to go. He's
Gotta get out of here.
He's overstimulated. All right. Well, that surprises me, actually. Never heard of emotional intelligence. Okay. Neil, what was it in your mind that we talked about that you know an emotional EI to be? This was another John and Chris show. We were geeking out a little bit on this one, too.
Yeah, it's funny, the ones that you guys geeked out on, the one that Victoria had. I feel like you almost planned it because sensory defensiveness kind of fits well with Victoria. And then...
I thought so. It did a little bit, but dang, she didn't even have any. And I think she started out the show, she was like sensory defensive. And then
she did talk about the one thing that bothered her with the whole smelling like burning rubber and stuff because of all the because of all the car accidents she had. I'm like, how many freaking car accidents did you have?
That was it, which was a good point. Trauma can create some of these defensivenesses. You're right.
So emotional intelligence is really how well can you handle and manage your emotions? I mean, that's really what it boils down to. I mean, to me, that's being aware of, okay, I'm having these issues or I'm feeling these things, and then you know how to handle it, and or your emotions take over and then you don't know how to handle it, right? In my head, that's emotional intelligence.
I'm
Now,
thinking you called it something else one other time, but it's the same thing.
Ooh, I don't know what that would have been. Emotional intelligence is similar to like, first of all, IQ, intelligence quotient, but I may have said something about personality inventories, which are all three different things.
Because this does, maybe I just forgot because it does sound familiar now that he's talking about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah. I mean, you're kind of on point, Neil. I think, as usual, the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, as well as recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others, which is an interesting component. It isn't diabolical. We're not saying emotional intelligence is a thing that we can measure and know, and that means you're diabolically more able to control or manipulate others. That's actually, John made the point, I think, when we were talking about this. If you have high emotional intelligence, you're also going to be highly correlated to connecting with others, caring about others, and managing in effective and nice ways the emotion. But you do have influence over people in the way that they feel.
So do you know anybody that's an emotional moron?
I know a lot of people who are emotional morons.
I am going to purposely not answer that question. Yes. Oh, God. How deep do I go on that? What do you want to know? How far do you want to go? We'll talk after the show.
Okay.
We'll talk after the show. So can you learn EI? Can you learn emotional intelligence? IQ, people are more familiar with. That's literally studied, and you can do IQ tests with psychologists. Like, we have well-refined research and science about that. And the answer with intelligence quotient, your IQ, is no, you really can't learn it. It's much more on the nature side of the nature-nurture debate. But what would you think, maybe it's obvious, about emotional intelligence?
I know the answer to this one. You want to?
You're supposed to go, ooh, 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 ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can learn emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
think
that's.
so.
I think you can too. I mean, it's the growth of a person. You know, when you look at, you get in situations where you overreact, you don't know how to handle it. Well, then you get smacked by someone. You realize, oh, I need to change, and then you slowly start changing again because you know that, oh, I need to handle this better. And so there's this constant growth that a human goes through. Then emotional intelligence is just that growth, that adaptability.
We could call it maturity. But hold on, not so fast. I've been thinking about this since we did the show, to be honest with you. So, because I didn't really know that these were out there, but we do have tests for this. So we have an emotional quotient inventory. We have something called a May-Savoy-Caruso EI test. We have emotional and social competency inventory, trait EI questionnaire, and we have a workplace emotional intelligence profile. So it's true, unbeknownst previously to me, that you can go to psych testing, which is a whole major science area. They do diagnostic psychological testing, like we were talking about with the person tree drawing, and these have high internal and external validity and objectivity factors that testers can go into that. So I was thinking, Neil, if you can measure this stuff in inventories and testing and whatnot, there are a lot more than we probably previously realized or even currently know that is on the nature side of this. And if you think about it, there are people that are really wired to be very concrete, okay? Very black and white thinkers, not analytical. Conversely to that, there are people that have high insight or high levels of intuitive ability. Like, I can look at you and your body position, Adam, and intuitively interpret what it is that you might be feeling. You know, like, you look mad right now, but I know that's not the way you feel. So I can intuitively think.
Maybe you need to work on this, Chris.
My skills suck in this area. No. So if you think of somebody who's autistic, they biologically have incredibly low levels of ability to interpret or convey the emotional cues or the emotional content. So, Neil, I think there might be a lot more nature into this where you have arguably maybe a ceiling or a floor, even though we do mature. Did you catch that rhyme, Adam?
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad. That's pretty good. I don't know if I could repeat it, but what do you think about that?
I think because we kind of hit this when we last talked about it, because I mean, there's the idea, even when you look at physicality or you look at certain things or talents, there's always there's a top and a bottom. You know, some people can draw really well, some people can't. Some people are physical freaks of natures, and they can squat 500 and bench 300 without even trying. You know, and there's that nature side, but then you also have the persistent side of, well, I can get to that 300 bench, or I can get to that 500, but it's not going to be easy for me.
Yeah.
So I think emotional intelligence
doesn't
has
come
that,
naturally,
right? Because I mean, in my household, once again, the more people you have in your house, you see the difference. Like I look at my youngest, and he has no clue that he just said something to piss off his mother. He has, like, you know, and then my oldest will get mad really fast. Like, so there's that difference between reacting and all those other things. So no, I think you're correct. There's a top and a bottom for every person. And I think what ends up happening is, as you look at it, you either have to learn to add more logic to it. So you learn, hey, I shouldn't do that. So it goes from emotional to logical, or you just basically say, I don't care, and you just stay who you are. But people have to work hard. I think that you're right. People have to work harder because of the nature they have to actually build emotional intelligence if they want to.
And honestly, yeah, absolutely. You know, as I was listening to you, my brain was going on a little journey with people that do have special needs children. You know, they will tell you, I think. I don't specialize or work a lot with developmental delays. It's always been a bit of a weakness of mine. But parents will tell you with special needs children, or children with special needs, I want to say that.
Yeah,
right.
make sure you do it right.
Yeah.
The person first.
Yeah, because they are just a person, and they do grow. Parents will tell you they see development happening with even people that are severely autistic or severely, like, you know, Down syndrome and delayed developmentally. They begin to interpret. They begin to convey. Like, a parent will know what that kid needs. It's kind of like a baby who hasn't started to talk yet. Parents really begin to discern a different type of cry for I'm wet versus a cry for I'm hungry, or a cry for I want attention. Those are very, very different conveyance of emotion that severely developmental delayed people will do. So there is a learning that goes into this. But I've never really thought of the floor ceiling, Neil. I think that's, that happens.
Well, I think there are certain, like I said, there's certain people that they're never going to get social awareness. Like, they can try to do that, but they just won't ever get it. I'm working on my youngest for that right now. There's been many times when he just misses, like, dude, you got to get out of your head. You're missing, like, that girl likes you. Like, come on, you open your eyes, you know? So I think there is certain things that some people just get to a certain point, and they're like, I can't get further than that. I just can't manage those emotions, or it's really hard for me. So 90% of the time, I might be able to get there, but that other 10, I just can't do it. Like, right. It gets to that point.
There are limits. So we're gonna do how do you develop emotional intelligence, and I have a little bit of a quick list. But before you tune out, I wanted to make sure that we hear that Cass is piling on to you, Adam.
Oh boy,
she's piling on. She says your painting of your mower is almost like art therapy. Your satisfaction with what you did is significant.
Well, I can see that. my issue is with the therapists, like, interpreting how I'm painting my lawnmower as to, ooh, you painted that green awfully angry, so you must have anger.
Did you put it?
And don't get me wrong, I have no idea what it's about. I'm just saying, I'm a little skeptical. If I knew more about it, maybe I wouldn't be. I'm just a little skeptical.
All the art therapists out there, I am going to forward anything you give to me to give to him. So I will flood him with all of your quandaries, questions, and curiosities and concerns.
I'm just saying, if I draw something and I use a different color, or I have bigger roots on a tree, they're not going to be able to tell me, oh, well, you got bigger roots on a tree that you're...
All mean stuff, Adam.
Yeah.
Our psychology is day to day and moment to moment, always with us, and it does show. All right, you want to know how to build emotional intelligence?
Yes, please tell me.
All right. You practice mindfulness practices. You can track emotional realities. Journaling is as you said, Neil, this is really like, another question of, how do you manage emotion? How do you understand and recognize and manage what it is that you're feeling? So you can answer that with all the ways that we develop lists with this. Building through hard trials and empathy and social skills. We didn't cover this last question as well. Can emotional intelligence be diminished or destroyed? And that's a big yes, because traumatic life events will really, really put people in a hole, and your ability to manage the way you feel gets like wrecked.
I mean, there's people that will get
Abuse.
taken advantage of over and over again. They finally get to the point like, I ain't gonna take this anymore, and they're just like, screw it. I'm not gonna be emotionally intelligent anymore. I'm gonna be an emotional moron and just deal with that.
Well,
I've coined a new term.
That's a different kind of problem. Learning active listening skills, actually studying how do we communicate better, learning specific ways that you manage conflict, goal setting, and then practicing setting these goals, anxiety, breaking things down to small pieces, depression. This is just a brainstorm that I came across with. Avoiding isolation, that's being purposeful, that helps your emotional intelligence. Learning regulation skills with people with bipolar or personality disorders. How do you regulate your emotions? Learning the 4 sections of my first book. This is a shameless plug, isn't it? It's terrible. Emotional intelligence.
I'm surprised you're not holding the book
The
up.
4 components. It's way far out of my reach.
It would match your shirt too.
The new book.
No. The new one would. We're talking about the old one.
Ah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I have a green shirt on for those listening, the audio version. All right. Seriously, the book that I did, Through a Therapist's Eyes, Re-Understanding Your Emotion to Becoming Your Best Self, I whittled that down to 4 sections that each chapter kind of seemed to fit in for the most part. And I thought that's really cool because it's really about how to manage emotions. The whole book synthesized down to 4 sections, which were 1, valuing yourself, 2, focus points, like what you're focusing on, 3, action points, how you make decisions and then execute actions, and then 4, stopping yourself from moving forward and reflecting on what it is that you're feeling. Like, those are 4 areas that I think really build your emotional intelligence levels. So pretty cool. Shameless plug. Through a Therapist's Eyes. Go get it. Amazon.com. Closing thoughts, comments. I think we got to get out of here. Moved fast today. Hope you followed us pretty good. Closing thoughts, comments.
Emotional intelligence, you have to work on it, and you have to know you need to work on it, because that's not something you just get. You just, like you said, most of the points that you had were learn this. Sometimes if you are on the low side of the emotional intelligence, it is going to take some extra effort. And sometimes you have to, I think active listening is a very important key, because when you don't have it and you find out your partner or your friends or your siblings or coworkers come back and say, hey, you kind of acted like a jerk, or you act like this, you need to take that. Well, I mean, you do. That's the thing, is like a great way to find out how well you do is you listen to people and you find out, oh, maybe I do have to work on certain things or certain skills, and sometimes
Absolutely.
it does. I joked about getting smacked, but sometimes it is that point where you get to a certain point where it takes something that traumatic for you to realize, oh, maybe I need to work on my people skills.
Listen, you grow the most when you hurt the most. So when you are in those situations, it really is. That's why I used to love chronic or crisis work. I did a mobile crisis team I've mentioned on the show lots of times, and you are right there in the moment with those moments, with a great opportunity to make massive change and grow. So that's totally true.
What about you, Adam? How do you want to close it?
I just want to give a caution to parents as far as when we were talking about the sensitivity thing about
Sensory defensiveness.
Yeah, I want to caution them not to try taking too much away for their kid, because they have to be exposed to things to be able to deal with things too.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's a really balancing point though, because with common sensory defensiveness experiences, yeah, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. But at the same time, Adam, when you've got clinical levels, you can't just take that away. It's such a challenge, because people don't understand that that's there, and they'll blame the kid, like, what the heck's wrong with you, dude? Like, little Johnny, would you not just put the shirt on? Stop bitching and complaining about the shirt. But what you got to realize is that's just not something that you can cope with. That's like sitting there saying, you know, you got tinnitus. You know what tinnitus is, right? Don't worry about that. Just disregard the sound in your ear. No, it's maddening. So, but your point is well taken, because we do need to kind of work with decreasing your reactiveness to that.
Not just cut it off.
Not just cut it off. Yeah. So it's really a balancing point. When you have somebody that's autistic and their defensiveness is raging, and you're going to put them in a loud room with people and just say, "Oh, kid, deal with it." You know, they need to be able to deal with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude,
Yeah,
it's way too much for that person to handle. So,
But I think it goes back to his day. When you look at kind of the standard practice of that kid who doesn't like that one shirt because of the tag, it's like, and you're out and about, it's like, okay, you don't have this issue. It's not a widespread, it's not clinical. Just deal with it. You, like you said, they learn to cope.
well, usually all three of us were able to find something that bothers us, and we learn how to cope with it. I could actually stay at Adam's house for more than an hour. Not Adam, Aaron. Sorry.
Aaron.
Get the A's right.
But we'll take you to Chuck E. Cheese. See how that goes.
No, I'm not going there. No, we're not. That's too much. See, that's just not fair.
So you'll never take the grandkids when you have grandkids to Chuck E. Cheese?
Oh, I didn't really think about that.
Dun,
Yes,
dun,
I
dun.
definitely will. If Chuck E. Cheese is still around.
Just
I
take them
think
for a hike instead. Nature's just as good as
Listen,
Chuck E. Cheese.
There's plenty of things that I could do with them, not take them to Chuck E. Cheese. But if I need to for their birthday once, I will do that. I pledge. All right, listen, we're going to get out of here. We have landed in August. It is burning up in climate here in the North Carolina area.
Yes, it is.
We will be getting out of this summer soon. Today is the Hall of Fame game. Football season starts. Very exciting time of year. Don't roll your eyes at me, Mr. Robinson.
I just realized I got all the fantasy football stuff that's about to start.
That's right.
I was like, crap.
That's right. It's coming.
I ain't got time for that.
Fantasy Football League. Yes, you do. You're in. And it's going to be fun. You're going to enjoy it. Listen, take care. We'll see